What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Logic Bomb Podcast, episode number 9. And you can see we got a guest for you this episode. We missed you guys last week. We took the week off because we had some things going on. But we're back this week, and to make up for it, we brought in Bikinibodhi to join us for this episode. And I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy that. How are you doing, Bikini? Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing good. Been a long week.
Been causing a stir on Twitter.
No, no.
Lead developer no. Bikini.
No, I mean it's all in good fun. There's always some bad eggs that are trying to ruin good discussion, but it's fun as long as it's civil.
Well, we're going to get into that. We're going to talk a lot about the recent hot topics within the community, as we always do here. And I'm looking forward to that conversation. But I kind of wanted to start out here by talking about, the elephant in the room worldwide right now, which is the coronavirus and how it's affected our daily lives. And, I would feel weird not just kind of talking about it. We're not going to go into crazy depth here. We're not scientists, and obviously we want to encourage everybody to seek out reputable sources for all their information. But just wanted to kind of talk about how it's affected our lives, because it's definitely, it's weird, man. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. I don't think anybody has. It's just really weird.
We've in the UK, we've gone into like a lockdown where they've basically said, you're not allowed to leave your house unless it's for food shopping, to go to get medicine or medical help, or to go to work. But they say they're not encouraging you. They're basically saying work from home unless you absolutely have to go in. And then you can go out for 1 hour of exercise every day, just one time a day. No, is it? I don't know if they've put a time restriction on it, but you can basically leave the house to exercise once a day. But yeah, it's really surreal. I must admit, I'm kind of, not for my own well-being, but I'm getting worried about it because obviously my wife is a nurse and she's dealing with this at hospital. So it's like one of those things where, I am worried because I think, like you just don't want to see your loved ones come down with something like this, do you?
No.
No. And like I think you made a really important point at the start, because if we are going to talk about this, it's really important to say we're obviously not experts. So if I say something like, I was going to say what I'm worried about is like the level of virus that, say, my wife is subjected to if someone coughs in her face, because that Chinese doctor that discovered it, or was the whistleblower, he actually died. He was in his 30s. And one of the theories going around is it's because he was sort of subjected to a really high dose of it. Do you know what I mean? Like he was around it all the time. But your point about, people need to seek out official advice is really important, like from your government, from the World Health, stuff like that, because we're going to throw stuff around that might not have a scientific backing to it with our opinions. That being said, I know Mr. Zyronic sort of has experience in this field.
I mean, I don't know if I was going to say I've been lucky enough to work with stuff like this, but I don't think that's actually lucky.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. Like all pandemic stuff, the only right thing is lockdowns, right? Like you have to. The problem is that so there's something called an R0 number, which is the amount of people that will get affected by one person. So let's say it's at, I think it's at 0.35 right now. It has to decrease by like 90% for us to even see a decline. And then when you take the death rate or the mortality rate of it, then, I mean, it's kind of horrifying. When people say, well, it's just a flu, well, it's not really. If we don't limit the infection rate, then we're looking at more deaths than World War II within like 30 to 40 days. That's if we don't control it, right? So it's pretty damn serious. But then again, if people can stop holding damn toilet paper and just stay inside, like if you truly are worried about a collapse or anything, toilet paper is not going to be the thing you need, right? we all have a collection of extra socks that don't have another
the shower bidet technique.
Yeah, exactly. There is plenty of things to do, but I think everyone should do themselves the favor of reading up a little bit about it, and it helps as well with the fear mongering as well. If you understand it a little bit more, then it's not as terrifying as if you don't, because at least you know what to expect.
Yeah.
I mean, what I would say about that is I can kind of understand why people bury their head in the sand a little bit, because this is something we have never seen before. So for people to say, oh, this is an overreaction, I can understand like why they might feel that way, although I totally disagree with it. And although this sounds alarmist, I do genuinely feel like we're really at the beginning of this still, considering, what's sort of happening and, the projections that the British government released were like, if they did nothing, this would take out 500,000 people. If they did nothing. Now, if they did the herd immunity thing, and like try to keep people apart, and protect the vulnerable, they still felt that might take out 250,000 people. 250,000. With what they're trying to do now, with locking it down, they're trying to limit the deaths to 20,000 people. I mean, that's still an incredible number of deaths. Do you know what I mean? But this is serious. We're only right at the beginning, really. Mm-hmm. They think this could go into next year with lockdowns and until such time as we get a vaccine. So it's a really surreal time to be alive, and obviously our thoughts are with people going through this stuff, and obviously, unfortunately, a lot more people are going to suffer with it. But it's
you're in Sweden, right?
Yeah.
I was reading the other day. Sorry, Pete. I was reading the other day that there was a huge uptick in cases there. How's it going where you're at?
I haven't really seen much. Basically, the only thing that I know that they've put in place is that any sort of gathering above 500 people is no go. I think we have some cases here in my city, just a few. It's more like in the bigger cities. Swedish people tend to be very antisocial already. Like we've been doing social distancing since we were born. But it's not that people are not very fussed about it here. It's weird.
It's been really weird at my house. So for anybody not familiar, I have 2 children, one of which is in 2nd grade, and then my wife's a teacher. And so both of them in my state, it's kind of state by state in America as far as how it's being handled. In my state, they haven't issued like a shelter in place or anything like what Pete has mentioned, but everything's shut down that's non-essential. So you're not going to get ticketed if you're outside. But all the businesses are pretty much shut down that aren't essential. And my kids are obviously home from school. Their school's canceled for an additional 2 weeks after this week. And it was kind of eye-opening the other day because my son, he said that he was feeling really, really anxious about it. And it made me realize how much have I had the news on. How much have me and my wife been talking about it? And you never know what is going to really grab a hold of an 8-year-old child and really stick with them. And one thing, he was anxious. He couldn't shake the thought that his grandparents were going to get it and get sick from it. And that, he heard that, older people are much more likely to die from it. And it really affected him. Yeah. And
that's one thing that I've kind of thought about, when it comes to kids and such in this sort of time, should you talk to them about it?
That's what I'm struggling with, that balance right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think there's a balance. You want them to be informed, you want them to understand what's going on, but you also don't want to create anxiety. It's literally affecting his sleep. It's been really challenging.
I think you answer their questions. I think if they don't come to you and start talking about the really, really horror, am I gonna die? You don't bring that stuff up. But if they say stuff like that, I think you don't lie to them. You just say, look, kids are you're gonna be absolutely fine. Because of you tell them about the age group thing. But I think I don't think you bring up things that they're not asking you about. I think it's just using.
And you don't leave the TV on CNN all day. It's really easy just to turn it on in the morning and see what's going on, and then you just leave it on. You're in and out of the room, and he's sitting in there playing, and he's subjected to it all day. You know what I mean? And that's what I've been trying to really prevent.
You can almost argue you shouldn't do that even if we weren't in this situation, right? having
Right.
CNN on all day, like what about all the other
Especially when you've got
horrible
Fox
shit that
News.
happens, right?
Do you know what I mean? Get Fox News on, mate. Come on.
Like that. Honestly, there's so much horrible shit that happens on just everyday life.
Yeah.
Right. Most of that stuff probably, I don't know. I don't know if it should be filtered for kids, but at least it should be. You know, there should be an adult there to kind of explain like, what is this actually?
Yeah.
We have a massive lockdown in Denmark, so it's illegal to gather more than 10 people. You will get fined if you're gathered more than 10 people. Everyone works from home except for whatever's necessary. So like that pretty much only means garbage disposal, people that do your electricity, your water, food shops can stay open, stuff like that. But they're limited on how many people can work there as well. So they can't have the full rotation of people working there. They have to, let's say, have 2 people working and then have a couple of days where they have some other people working there, so you can see if people get sick, and like they're really keeping track on it. And I think we're all the way into like late April on this already. Like as a minimum. But
That's insane.
We'll see.
It really is, and that's not even like okay. I don't want to make light on the loss of human life, because that's obviously anybody who dies from this is the greatest tragedy. But the economic repercussions from this, I know for a fact we're only at the beginning of that. And to bring this back to Rainbow Six Siege, we just saw Team Reciprocity just out like that. Like they were obviously, I mean, I think the way that they explained it, Team Reciprocity is an pro league org. The way that they explained it was that they were relying on a series of basically fundraising in order to keep going. And with the stock market dump and with the coronavirus, nobody's willing to invest right now, basically. And that means for them, they dropped their team. They had to go to the bare essentials. And we could see a lot more of that. We honestly could. I mean, what you're seeing on the screen right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, Pete and Zoronic, their cameras are kind of fluctuating a little bit. That's because of the bandwidth limitations from Europe. I haven't experienced that myself, but I know a lot of people in Europe are experiencing, some bandwidth issues, and you can see that on your screen right now. Their cameras are adjusting because of the bandwidth fluctuation. So, I mean, that's just crazy that within a few weeks, we can bring this like back to Rainbow Six Siege and say the coronavirus has done this.
Well,
and then we can bring it to this podcast and say the coronavirus has done this.
Events flanked. The events that they've had to cancel. Half the devs are working from home. If you were planning on going to the Pro League finals, you won't be now. They've cancelled that for good reason. And the theory is that obviously it depends on country, but these periods of lockdown will perhaps last a month, something like that, because what they're anticipating, it's because of the growth of this, every 3 to 4 days it's doubling. So you could look at the mortality rate for your country or the cases, and you would expect them to double in 3 to 4 days. Obviously that depends on how many people are being tested. There's a lot of other factors in there because some people are asymptomatic, but the point being, what they want to happen is to stop the hospitals getting overwhelmed, where obviously then they can't actually have the capacity to treat people. And that's where in places like Italy, they've had to make the hardest decisions, where they have like a 70-year-old and a 40-year-old. They're like, we're going to have to treat the 40-year-old and just give pain relief to the 70-year-old or something like that. It's horrible. So what they're trying to do is manage it, aren't they? So that you hit a sort of peak and it comes down so it doesn't overwhelm your health service, and then they might let people out, and then as it happens again, they then tell you all to stay in for a few weeks. Sorry, Zoronic.
No, that's fine. There's a lot to that. What they're doing in Italy is just basic triage. And while it might sound horrible, it's literally a green card, yellow card, red card. Some people are worth the effort of helping, and some people are not, because you have limited amounts of antibiotics, stuff like that, and you have to make the choice. That as well. you have to make the choice. Most people are seeing it's the secondary bacterial infection in the lungs that are the big issue. So antibiotics and ventilators come in there. You have limited resources of that, and you have to make the choice, because otherwise less will survive. I don't want to get too much into this because I don't think we're qualified to it. But that's what happens, and it's the same thing that happens in a basic car crash. If you don't have enough people to help, or you don't have enough medical staff on the ground at that time, well, then you have to make choices. Yeah. It sucks to do that, but it'll always be the right thing to do. And thank God there's some people that are there to do it. And I mean, you're right. You want to flatline the curve so you're not running your hospitals at the full capacity or above, because that's where triage becomes necessary, right? But I mean, this is gonna be something you can feel in a year still, just from economic standpoint, right?
Yeah.
We have it's very rare that if someone goes bankrupt with a company or closes a company, that they end up starting that company up again. That is very rare, very rare. So replacing that workforce is difficult, and the jobs that are lost are gonna take a long time to be replenished. It's not, you just don't fire a guy for a month and then they're back again, right? Yeah. So that's probably what most people are gonna feel in this. We have, I mean, you mentioned events being canceled. We have the Siege Major was canceled. A lot of other esport events have been canceled. A lot of big, just, you know, like content creator events have been canceled as well. The three of us had a plan to go somewhere at one point, and that's canceled. So there's a lot of things that are impacted. I know, I assume Bikini and I both had a place to go as well that got canceled.
Yeah, you can talk about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Bikini's bedroom.
Oh, I don't think that one's cancelled.
That one we could not talk about.
Social isolation.
That was the secret one.
Social distancing.
But yeah, like a lot of things are gonna get cancelled. Things are running on the limit, right? Like I assume we're seeing more player numbers than ever.
Yeah. New peak.
Yep.
Wait, have we had new peaks
since
last time we
on
talked?
Twitch and YouTube?
Yeah, 200,000 it peaked on Steam charts like yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
have you guys noticed anything on your streams or like higher viewership numbers on YouTube videos or streams?
Streams. I haven't uploaded it in 3 weeks. So. But maybe.
I've noticed it. I've streamed the last 2 days and I've noticed it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's an increase, but it's not proportional to what you would think, because I think more people are also streaming.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think there's more people obviously to consume content, but there's also way more people to both give content, and the people that would watch from work. I have a lot of people that watch mine from work, for example. I mean, they're home, they can play, right? So I think that changes it a little bit.
Would you guys bringing this back to Siege, because I'm just thinking about like the timing of all this, like everybody's at home, you know, one thing that ran through my mind, like Call of Duty Warzone, like the timing for them to release that is impeccable. Like they are, you don't want to say that anybody's benefiting from coronavirus, but them releasing that at the time that they did was really good timing. But another thing that had really good timing was the Golden Gun arcade game mode. What did you guys think of that?
Absolutely hilarious. For 8 hours, and then I was kind of over with it, but it was really fun for 8 hours.
Yeah. It's something that I've been like asking for a very long time, is like, you know, during 3 months at one point it gets somewhat stale, so having these sort of like mini games is something that I've always wanted. So I'm really happy that that's something that they've pulled through. I mean, we've seen it in, I think a lot of Blizzard games have those kinds of things. In Hearthstone they have the Tavern Brawl, which is basically a new mini game every week. Some of them obviously are returning. They might change some things, but it's really nice because it keeps you, you know, something new to play with every week. So I'm happy that Siege is sort of going into those waters, because obviously that doesn't affect the competitive nature of Siege whatsoever. So it's a really good thing to do, I think.
And they get to play around with a few mechanics, right? Like this is just one thing, but let's imagine like a couple of years down the road, we've had a ton of arcade mode. Maybe someone notices something that otherwise wouldn't have happened. Maybe we get some weird mechanic that seems a bit gimmicky in the start, but ends up becoming an operator. Or
Nomad
maybe
came out of Outbreak, didn't she? The mechanic of the air jab.
Yeah, I mean, I almost assume so did Oryx.
Yeah. Well,
the Smasher.
Yeah.
But then again, so did
Maverick.
Teleport Cheetahs.
Yeah.
Maverick from
That's
the
true.
acid. Maverick from the guy. Remember the ones that would go through the walls? I think that was maybe the start of Maverick. It was at least the same animation.
Oh.
Yes, it is. Yeah, the burning.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it didn't actually make a hole when it burned. It still exploded like a thermite charge.
But it was
did it?
the visual effect, if I remember rightly, the way it sort of melted.
Yeah, the visual was it melted and then it exploded.
Okay.
So it was a thermite effect with a different visuals. I guess
That's gonna be interesting though when that comes out. Quarantine. Even though, let's be fair, they might change the name of that.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was wondering about that with what's going on right now.
It's not funny, but it is.
That's that name is a little.
I mean, any videos we make on that will be demonetized just for putting quarantine in the YouTube title. So hopefully they change it for our sake.
Yeah.
Rainbow Six Siege self-isolation. Rainbow Six Siege
social distancing.
Oh, man. All right. So I've got to throw this out here and this isn't my idea. I saw this on Twitter, and we're going to get into more Twitter ideas here shortly, I'm sure, with Bikini, because he's got some interesting ones, of course. But an idea for an arcade game mode, I forget who said this, but what about 3-on-3? And I'd say like a medium-sized map. 3-on-3, all 6 people are Kavera with the pistol only.
I feel like replayability would go down really fast.
But
but I feel like that like scenario of do I go for the interrogation or not would make that game mode really interesting. Do you and your 3 players stick together? You know what 100%. I mean? Are you able to trade each other out? Like, what's that?
I mean, that's the problem. You force people to play a certain way then, because you have to stay together. Because if you don't and you lose, then you lose the round. And I honestly think that game mode. I don't know how important that is from like a game development perspective, but I think that game mode would make people more angry than it would make them happy, if that makes sense. When the first guy who goes in and gets interrogated, his entire team is pissed at him now, right? If you're just playing by yourself.
How many times do you see in a ranked game, you get the interrogation, everybody goes nuts, and then all of a sudden you lose 3 of the defenders die because everybody just went guns blazing. You know what I mean?
Every high elo game with Cav.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I thought it would be kind of interesting. With
the thing I like about it is because the arcade playlist, whatever, is that what they're called? I think one of the principles behind them is they're not meant to be like these massive events. It is something where you can just tweak it, So it seems like something that wouldn't take a great deal of effort from my very ignorant point of view to create that event. So
I want Top of Tower. Top of Tower only with Nomad. Everyone's Nomad.
Or
and there's lava.
So you can knock people off. So you all charge
No,
around.
you only have air jabs. You only have air jabs, and it's going to be the floor is lava, and you're at the top of the tower, and if you fall down, they remove all the railings, and the only game is to knock people off the roof.
That sounds
that's good. If you got
could you throw Orcs in there?
Yeah.
Throw Orcs in there with his ability to knock people off?
Yeah, but I think an air jab would always win, because if he can't shoot...
Yeah.
Or maybe make the... Do you remember the old air jabs? The test server air jabs that blew up instantly?
Oh, yeah.
That on the top of tower, and everyone just has like 10 air jabs.
Yeah. There's a lot they could do with that. I mean, the possibilities are infinite. How about, and notice the segue here, how about 3v3, everybody's Blackbeard 800 HP shield?
Oh, so do I open this box, Bikini? Because
let's let Bikini start, because Bikini, you've had some interesting ideas. First, okay, I think to sum it up, you want to rework Blackbeard, correct? Is that fair to say? You want a Blackbeard rework. So why do you want a Blackbeard rework? What are your ideas? Go ahead, lead us in here.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it's safe to say that a lot of Blackbeard is someone who frustrates a lot of people. Is that?
Yes.
Like
totally.
He has a very unfun mechanic. He doesn't really bring any utility to the team. He's only really there to like win a gunfight by countering good aim because he blocks headshots. It's an anti-skill shield because most people have, good crosshair placement, aiming for the head. Like he counters that. He counters people who have that. And so I don't know. I've never really been a fan of Blackbeard. Obviously, I don't. But and I just felt like now that they might be more prone to like rework operators a lot more like from the ground up. Like obviously they still want to keep their identity and sort of like the play style that's behind them. They don't want to just give them a new gadget completely. So I felt like maybe Blackbeard is like one of the good options for a rework. I actually found some stats from the ban rate from Shifting Tides, and he's actually the second most banned operator, next to Jackal having 70%, and Blackbeard sitting at, I think it's 25%, 24, 25. So, he is something that a lot of people find frustrating, and I'm one of them. I don't think he's fun to play against, and I also don't find him fun to play as.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of like, sort of like a desync where you're looking, are you actually protecting your head? But at the same time, we don't want to make him more consistent. So it's one of those where it's like, it's not fun to play as, and it's not really fun to play against.
When you set the ban rate, was that for Shifting Sides?
Yeah. So I actually have both, I think.
Is that overall in game? Because surely it's not like
platinum and
lower.
above. It's platinum and above. I have the picture here if you want it.
Really?
Yeah, so the ban rates, top 10 attack operators, season 4, Shifting Tides. Jackal at 70%, Blackbeard 24%, Thatcher 21%, Monty 18, Maverick 15, Nomad 14, Thermite 7, Kali 7, no ban 6%, and Bana at 5%. Yeah, I did. Yeah, but that just goes to show how serious rank is.
That's surprising. But I think the Jackal ban in there. I mean, we've talked about that before on the podcast as well. I think that ban is interesting because you sent me the picture yesterday as well of the win deltas, and Blackbeard is the second highest win delta, I think. Correct?
Yeah.
But with a very low pick rate. Like his pick rate is fairly
He's
down
at he has 51% win rate with a 11 or 12% pick rate.
Presence, but yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I said the wrong thing there. But Finka is above him. And we talked about that when we talked about Rook and Duck, and like how sometimes it's difficult to figure out like why certain operators are in certain levels. Like you have to have a shit ton of information to justify why that. Like Finka, for example, why is she the highest win rate operator, and why is Capital so far down when, I mean, he's one of the most banned in competitive, right? Because of how good he is at zoning certain sites out. But then things change when stuff goes solo queue by a lot. And things change a lot when they're in, like, just the difference from Plat 3 to Plat 1 or Plat 1 to Diamond. Things change a lot there as well. One thing that I know we both agree on, which is, like, people are going to think it's insane. I would rather play against old Blackbeard than Blackbeard as he is now.
Yeah.
I don't think Blackbeard is broken. I don't think he necessarily needs a nerf. I think there's a lot of things you can do when you hear the Mach 17 and you can slow peek. You'll always break the shield first. I don't feel like I'm less afraid of facing a Blackbeard than Sophia, for example. But I would rather know when I hear the Mach 17 that it's an unbreakable shield that is 100% hanging on a window. Because if you look at Consulate and he's hanging on the double windows by B, I know exactly what's happening in that round. Blackbeard's hanging there. Someone is covering yellow run out. Someone is going to be on the balcony covering that. One person is droning and one person is going to try and enter bathroom, for example. So now I know the flow of the whole game. But then I can ignore dealing with the windows because the Blackbeard isn't going to jump in, because then he's going to get C4'd because they have too many people dedicated to covering him and all of that stuff, right? Yep. So things become a little bit predictable, and then I can deal with it. And I know that if I challenge an 800 HP Blackbeard, I made a mistake. I should not have done that. But now you're kind of itching. You're like, oh, maybe I should peek. It's only 60 HP or 50 HP. I can probably do it.
Yeah.
And then when you die, it feels frustrating as fuck. I do agree with that.
Because I mean, yeah, it's something that you and I agreed on a few weeks back, and it's kind of like the choice is like, do we want a character that we know is overpowered and that we know how to truly like play around, or a character that is like purely RNG? So like, it's kind of like this one. I know I can't gamble this, so I'm not gonna. Whereas the other one is like kind of like, I could probably peek him, destroy the shield. So I'm,
and then you do it and die, and then you're fuck Blackbeard.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the only thing I take issue with in that whole thing is it was the same with some other operators like during the game, where people would argue that either they require less skill, which might be true for some operators without a doubt, but there is a lot of operators that do a lot by clicking one button or from safety. Like the value you get out of Thatcher, right? Him being nerfed a little bit to where he doesn't destroy all gadgets but just disables them is a good thing. But I think maybe he should get to a point where he only disables everything and doesn't destroy anything. But then again, we have the whole gadget economy issue where maybe you don't have enough on attack to actually deal with it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Blackbeard, for me... Okay, can we do we all agree on this? If we could go back, would you guys make it to where Blackbeard never existed? The concept of Blackbeard.
How do you mean? Like, just
like if you could magically snap your fingers and go back, would you? And you had the power to delete Blackbeard and make sure he never entered the game. Would you do that?
Yeah,
I would too.
If I could replace him, absolutely.
I think the devs would as well, personally.
Yeah, I mean, he was made before the game came out, before they truly like quite understood how people were going to play the game, and he came out season 2. Still, like by that point, people haven't really figured out how the game is like played, and how much this sort of like how the game is played, basically, right? Like,
he was in launch trailers as well.
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
They would probably like. I wouldn't be surprised if they want to rework him as well. It's more of like, what kind of priority is he? There are probably a lot of other operators that want to rework before him.
I would put him pretty high.
Yeah, same.
Honestly, I would.
And, I mean, he has a high ban rate, so like,
it's the frustration factor more than the over or OP factor.
Yeah,
because I will agree, it's super frustrating to play against. But I don't think he gives your team a better chance of winning.
He clearly does.
Not if we're playing.
The pros would exploit him. If he was OP, the pros would be playing him.
I think it's important to distinguish ranked play from pro play here, though.
Yeah, and even like if we talk frustration, I don't care how frustrating something is in comp play at all. I care how frustrating it is in everything else, because that's where people play to enjoy. Comp play is play to win.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for whoever's going to be offended by that, but that's really the way I see it. Comp play is about finding out who's the best. Everything else is about having fun. But the problem I have, so let's say we removed, he never existed. There would have been so many other operators that would instantly take his place as the next one to delete. Blitz, Monty.
I don't know, man. Like, there's nobody who can have.
Do you remember Recruit
face
Shield?
What's that?
Do you remember Recruit Shield? That was many times stronger than Blackbeard ever was. 3-speed Recruit Shield, 25 bullets.
With the 5.7.
Oh yeah, sorry, 2-2. Like
with the 5.7.
He was played in damn near every scrim in the time he was broken. Some people even played 2 shields. It was the worst thing you could fight because you could quick drop your shield, right? Oh, yeah. So you could basically spam. I have a few clips of it from old school where there was no way you killed a shield player. Elation from Dat Flamers back then was probably the best at doing that. You could not shoot him. It was not possible. You could C4 them because C4s killed shields back then. So that changed it a little bit. But it meant that you had to run the same amount of C4s as they had recruit shields, or you had no chance. They were so strong that when you had aimbotters on the other team, you went fire recruit shield and you probably won.
Yep.
The counter argument I would give though is that they've clearly fixed that. As well as I mean, there was a time when there was a Monty meta, like a hardcore Monty meta. I think when the revolver wasn't the revolver like a one shot down or something. It was
it was two shot down,
okay.
But it had a laser and it was very, very, very accurate. You could fire people like across the map.
So they fixed all that. And what they've done with Blackbeard is basically tried to nerf him into oblivion where nobody wants to pick him. And what you end up with Blackbeard right now is an operator that's frustrating to play against and an operator that's frustrating to play with, which is like worst case scenario for an operator in this game, in my opinion.
But the truth is you don't see him a whole lot anyway. So is it that much of a priority if it comes down to frustration? Or are you arguing you don't see him a whole lot because of the frustration to play as? Because I don't see it as a problem to play against. I think the point that was made earlier, and I think we're going to talk about this more in depth later on, is that Siege is becoming really utility dependent. Like, if you're an attacker and you're not bringing anything other than fragging capability, that's why Nook is much better now than she was at launch, but it still you still have a really hard time fitting Nook into your lineup because she doesn't bring anything other than fragging capability.
She's a lot better now, though. Now that she has frags, she can get those deployable shields, those castle barricades that are like really present in today's meta. So them giving her frags is going to allow her to be played a lot more in competitive.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
You still have a big problem. Even with Nook, you could take someone else that had grenades that would be better, right?
Yeah.
You could run Mav, or you could run Bug and
Yana with unlimited drones, basically.
Well, 6 drones, but yes, you have a time limit. So that kind of matters. If like you might have 6 drones, but they're spread out over a long time, right? And sure, Nook can bypass the cameras, and there's definitely times where she can be viable. The big problem with some operators like Blackbeard, for example, you can't really afford to bring him unless you're going to hang on a window and cover something. And honestly, if you're going to hang on a window, rappel upside down. It's 10 times better than doing it with Blackbeard. And then some smart boy is going to say, well, just do it with Blackbeard upside down. No, because you can see his shield before he can see you. So that's not
the
a
frustrating
trade.
Part about playing
Blackbeard is like, and I've played a lot of Blackbeard, and I haven't played him for probably 1.5 years. I haven't touched him in rank. I play him like every now and then for nostalgia reasons, but he doesn't, like, everything you could have done with him, you could do better with something else. The only thing you get is that one chance of hitting a shot that you otherwise would have missed.
Which happens. I mean, sure, and let's throw this out there too. Just because a bullet hits your shield doesn't mean that bullet would have hit your head 100% of the time. Sometimes, yes, but sometimes it would have gone to the left.
When I'm taking the shots, it does mean that. When I'm looking at the kill, cam, that one shot was a headshot.
Yeah,
I'll say that.
That's the fun thing though, when people scream that it was a Blackbeard, and you see they didn't even break the shield. You're like, you're probably not gonna have a headshot at him though. But so his gun is so bad, especially when his shield breaks. It's really a terrible, terrible gun. You can, if you know Blackbeard is there, at least I guess the one tip to deal with it is that you peek as slowly as you possibly can, because you will always get to see his shield before he can see you, no matter what. Then sure, we can argue that if he fast peeks you, maybe the advantage isn't that big, but every defender gun will two-shot a shield in 90% of the time, right? And then his recoil goes to shit, and his entire screen is cracked, and there's a lot of negative effects. It's kind of like getting leash in mind when your shield breaks. There's a reason we don't see that many of them in higher elo. He's definitely frustrating to play against, but I think maybe a year from now, there's going to be stuff that is way higher on the frustration list. Like, I dislike traps more than playing against the Blackbeard. Having to check below me when I jump in a window, in my eyes, is just as bad as seeing a guy with a face shield on. Because I can't decide whether I shoot the frost trap or shoot the guy. I have to shoot the frost trap. Otherwise, I'm dead anyway.
I think that what you say with him, like in a year, like being even less of a cause to bring him. It can go both ways because we've talked about this before, that maybe something happens in a year where he's like enters the meta again. You know what I mean? And it might not be that far off. Like last night, for example, I don't know. Did any of you guys watch the North American matches last night?
No, not yet.
So Dark Zero versus TSM, the Mute Mozzie meta is in full swing right now, and Dark Zero, both teams were running it. TSM ran Mute Mozzie really effectively, and Dark Zero struggled with it on attack, like really bad. Dark Zero tried running it, and what TSM did was they brought Dokkaebi. And therefore, yes, they might not be able to drone out the roamers, but they could make a phone call and still get information based off of the sound. And that was one adjustment that they made really well. I could see something popping up where they're like, okay, listen, we're not going to be able to drone out people and execute, so we need to bring BBs just so we can win gunfights. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I could see something like that could happen down the road where you see
the problem is that won't work in competitive. If you peek someone with a Blackbeard in competitive, you die. That's just how it works. Like look at Blackbeard's peeking. You're gonna die.
You can't. I mean, okay, Blackbeard isn't being picked right now in competitive, but it wasn't that long ago. Blackbeard has been in the meta in Pro League with the 80 HP shield. That has existed.
But it's to hold angles, not to push.
Okay. Fair enough.
Monty, I would agree. I think we're going to see, Bikini mentioned this just before we got on. Reaper made a really good video about like how strong Monty is.
Yeah.
I think there's a few missed points in it. Like it's super difficult if there's an echo in play or a lesion or a smoke, or a Goyo. But he definitely does clear things a lot safer, right?
Yeah.
And
with
is
the mute Monty,
absolute shit to play against. If you're a roamer, like the comms on a competitive team, when Monty comes, it's just everyone screaming help, help, help while you're running away, right? There's a lot of things that like the meta is definitely going to change because it's super, super, super gadget sided right now. Everyone, like it's all about utility, right? Tons of utility. And you have to remove that, which forces you to do certain things. At some point, someone is going to find a way to just ignore half the utility and either attack site straight on or something like that. And then the meta will kind of swap around again, or we're going to get some new operator that can help with that.
Honestly, I think people should give Fuze a chance when it comes to all of these, because I feel like with the sort of meta that's going on right now, where you just have like a bunch of like either intel denial through Mozzie, or this sort of like projectile denial that's, you know, Jagger, Wamai, Goyo, Castle. And I really feel like Fuze could do a lot of work on a lot of sites there, where like you basically use Fuze the site and you get so much. You trigger all the Goyo shields. You know, maybe you don't get the castles, but you exhaust a lot of the Wamais, the Jaggers. Like I wish more people. I think Fuze is a bit overlooked. I think he can have a lot of like chances in this meta. Like let's say you go Cafe, right, and defense wins the first round, top floor. Fuze will be effective on all the other sites.
He'll even be effective on top floor, because if you fuse the hatch, you guarantee removal of wire, the first ADS, the Goyo shield that might be in Cigar, the C4 that might be planted underneath New Hatch. Like you get so much out of him, and he has an exceptionally good gun.
Yeah, I think the issue is that people look at Fuze as like, oh yeah, I'm going to bring this and I'm going to frag the entire site and I'm going to get a kill. That's not really how you should consider when you pick Fuze. When I pick Fuze, I'm like, okay, they're going to be here. I can fuse this room and there's not going to be any more gadgets in that room anymore. And I might hurt some of them in the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point.
I see him as anti-gadget.
He's actually really fun on sites where you can repel outside on the soft wall. We don't have a lot of that anymore. But back when Jim had the little lip on Clubhouse, you could repel up there and then fuse while you were thermiting. You'd make sure that by the time that was open, there was no cams, there's no nothing, like the whole hallway is clear. You can get a lot of stuff cleared with that. You can remove Kaid jammers or Kaid claws. You can actually remove both kitchen and modal with Fuze on Clubhouse, and I mean you get all the wire as well. So if you were planning on getting the wire with Sophia, then might as well do it with Fuze if you can. He's heavy, and that's a little bit of an issue because he's a little slow on rotation, but it's very
gun,
little.
though.
I hate the Russian ACOG though, man. I hate the Russian ACOG.
I mean,
I
at
like
least that's
it.
something you like. Then you can get the player that likes it to play it, right? But that's such a small thing. I think he still has the best gun in attack.
Yeah, highest DPS.
Yeah. And like it shreds.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. But yeah, at some point he's probably gonna see play. We've seen him actually a little bit more than people think.
He was played really effectively at Invite. I think G2
yeah.
ran him on Cafe.
Yeah, we've seen him played a little bit with Shield
Fnatic
as well. Like the PMM with Shield is still terrifying as well.
Yep.
And you do have the smokes, so he has way more utility than most other operators when you think about it on attack. The problem is setting him up. He needs like two homeboys to help him do his job, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas sometimes Buck is fast enough to be able to just bam bam and stuff is open and now he can move around.
I think it's also
very vulnerable.
I mean, I think also people overlook the fact that you can essentially push someone out from a spot where they're hiding.
Yep.
That's also one of the very overlooked factors. If you have someone holding an angle, like let's just imagine like you're holding an angle from pillars into train, and there's someone in the train, you can use Fuze to flush them out into the guy holding an angle. I don't know. I have this feeling that Fuze could be the doomsday to this sort of meta that is like so heavily centered on putting a lot of things and just denying. Like Fuze can just remove all of that. And I really wish more people gave him a chance because I think he's so much better than people think, even in competitive. I mean, in ranked, he actually has a higher win rate. He doesn't have high pick rate, but I think that's because he's a slow operator and it requires a lot of effort. I mean, in ranked, people want to pick something that's just, I can just pick this up, I can run in, I can shoot, throw this into sight, and I did my job. Fuse requires a little bit more effort.
I mean, in rank, you have to remember that, at least from my experience, by the time you're ready to fuse, half of your team is dead.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, by the time you've actually done things proper, cleared, droned out, and you place your first cluster charge, you look up and there's 2 people dead and your thermite is crying for help. And like I'll be there in a minute. If rank was slower, I think he would be amazing.
That's the same thing I run into with IQ. Like a lot of times, whenever I was on the Nerf Legion advocacy train,
wait, are you off that by now?
I no. We can talk about that in a minute. Like Legion, that nerf to Legion, honestly. The indicators, I didn't realize how big of a difference that was going to make. But let me finish my thought here. But so many people would say, just play IQ, just play IQ. Listen, IQ and ranked is tough, man. Because you got to have people, you got to have map control, and you got to have people watching flanks. And that sounds really simple, but it's harder than it sounds. And I just don't. I think that like you watch Maverick's kind of the same thing. Like I know so many people after watching Invite and all the Maverick play that we saw at Invite, people were just trying to play him left and right in ranked, and it just doesn't work that way in your average ranked game. You've got to have like in order to open walls with Maverick, the average ranked squad isn't capable. Like they're not capable. I know it looks simple. You just open the top, you open the bottom, you get soft destruction. Now he's got grenades, he could, but it's not. Like people really struggle with that. And by the time that you're the Maverick trying to open the wall, it's like you're getting flanked by a cav up the stairs because one of your teammates is sitting right beside you, watching you open the wall instead of watching the staircase that you need watched. But I don't know. I think you're onto something with it. Let me throw this at you with Fuze. What if they gave him a different area of effect? So his area of effect, his lethal area of effect remains the same, but his area of effect for gadgets, maybe you make it, 1.5 times bigger than what it currently is, so that like literally, like legitimately, he can clear out a room with one cluster charge, and I don't know. that could be.
I think the one issue, especially right now, that came into like this season is the shrapnel changes. The shrapnel changes are very glitchy and makes a lot of things more RNG. I don't think it was ready to be implemented yet. Because I've had people survive basically a frag grenade laying next to them and not having rook armor. and I've seen C4s land at the bottom of people's feet and not kill them. And it's the same with Fuze. I've had so many people saying that they played Fuze and they keep getting damage from their cluster charges, like essentially going through the floor.
Yeah.
So yeah, something's up with the shrapnel changes, and I'm personally not a fan of them at the moment.
At least they don't affect the gadget destruction, the amount of clear you do. They will like I think the thing that's fucking up with the shrapnel stuff right now is the player damage.
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing. As far as I know, one fuse charge does the same damage as one C4, right? One puck is the same as one C4.
Yeah.
So the amount of destruction in a fuse charge, don't make that bigger. You can clear the entire armory on Clubhouse with 2 fuse charges max.
Yep.
Like, you gotta dump all your utility in that room, right? Like, every Wamai, all Jaeger ADSs, and everything will be removed.
All Goyer shields.
All your wire. Yeah.
All the mutes, all the mozzies, they're gone.
I think the only thing I would like to see with Fuze, they made it so he places his charges quicker. I wish they were a little quieter, or I wish you could throw them like Elemines. If imagine you threw them like an Elemine and they would stick, and then it would take longer to charge them and they would be louder when they hit. But maybe you could be outside a window and then throw them in on the floor, and then trigger them from in there, so you didn't need as much help getting them off. Or you make them so they're a lot quieter when you place them, so you don't always get insta shot the second you do it. Because there's not a lot of surprise when that giant ass metal pole comes through the floor, followed by something that sounds like a truck crashing into your headphones. Like, it's not easy to be sneaky with that thing.
A cheesy way of changing it would be to be able to place all 3 of them. To like block a pathway out, and you are basically guaranteeing that you are.
What's your counter?
Sound, audio, the fact that you're placing them all down one by one, people would hear that.
No, so I mean, you would the amount of destruction. Let's say they're in kitchen, on cafe. If I manage to place all of them down, and I click, someone dies, and there is nothing they can do about it.
In bunker, they could be in bunker. It wouldn't do anything to bunker.
Wait, cafe downstairs?
Yeah.
You mean freezer?
Like the freezer / bunker area. A lot of people call that bunker, like the area outside of.
You confuse them.
From
it's,
where?
Fireplaces above that, isn't it?
Yeah, the entire thing is soft there.
But
on that side.
Okay, even if B isn't soft, or if A isn't soft, that's not even important. If I can lock down an entire site and guarantee everyone playing there will die and there will be no gadgets, that means I click once, and the second the last fuse charge blows up, I have sight.
Good, isn't it?
I mean, it'd be fun to play for a bit.
I like it.
Damn, that would be terrifying. Or you could put it on like 3 windows, and just have them sat there and then blow them all up at the same time. Like, I don't know, if they do that, then the damage has to be a lot less. Like, 1 fuse puck shouldn't kill you if you do that. It should do damage and then only be. I guess that could be an argument as well. Maybe it should not be meant to kill people. Maybe it should be meant to remove gadgets.
That's how I look at it. Like, whenever people make this sort of like they categorize operators and they put like anti-gadgets. They put like Thatcher, IQ, Twitch, Kali. I think Fuze deserves to be in that group as well. That's how I look at him.
I agree, but he will kill people now, right? Like, maybe he should be so he can't kill people, or he does very little damage, but he destroys more gadgets.
What if they were EMP pucks instead of explosive damage?
I mean, then it's just Thatcher on crack.
Or a worse Thatcher, because it has to go through the wall.
Yeah,
whereas Thatcher could basically do the other thing from the safety of the reinforced wall.
Plus, EMPs wouldn't destroy barber or shields or anything like that.
You want a sort of Kali effect.
Well, yeah. What if they just made it sort of like Kali's impact in it? So it's just a bunch of small, like cluster, like impacts, and not really C4 power.
They all do 5 damage, but they do it in the same area as they do now, or a little larger.
Make it like 10 small, like little pellets instead of 5 pucks.
Yeah. Because the problem with I've thought about the throwing thing as well. I've thought about like cluster charges should have the throwing mechanics of a nitro cell. But the problem is from below up. That would feel a little cheap to me. If somebody could be below me, throw it on my floor that I'm sitting on in sight, and then cluster charge through the floor to me from below. That would,
Yeah, but I look at it the same if you do it from above, though. Whether they come down like this or they come up like this. Man, Buck is no more scary if he's below you or above you.
Hear him above, and you can fight him with a nitro cell. Can you do that below?
That's fair. That's fair. I think if you were to make it from below, then just let gravity play a bit more of a role in it, so the pucks just basically go up and flop out, like they don't fly as far. Like that could maybe be it.
Like an attacking nitro cell, basically.
Yeah, or maybe it just can't stick when it's upside down. Maybe it just fuck realism, to be honest. You can get shot in the leg and still run, so I'll never take that as
I think that what we were talking about before kind of fixes that problem, though. Is like if it does the destruction of a Kali bolt, you know what I mean? Where like a bandit can be right on a wall. If the Kali goes off, it does what, 6 damage, something like that.
Yeah.
But it'll destroy a lot of things in that area. So I think that could probably fix it. The only other thing I'd say is maybe you look at the amount of soft destruction it would do, which I don't even know if this is possible in the physics. You wouldn't want the Fuze to be able to go underneath and just destroy the entire floor of the objective, and all of a sudden all the attackers are sitting on.
I think punch holes.
I think the idea of making it non-lethal to the point where perhaps it does damage, right? So if you get caught in it, maybe you're going to lose 30, 40 health. But the actual point is what Bikini was saying. It's an anti-utility gadget that does damage as a side effect. You're not really doing a great deal of damage, but you're going to be covering a larger area, and you're gonna do some damage. You're going to maybe soften people up a little bit if you do catch them in that.
But without changing another mechanic, we're actually nerfing Fuze. So what would you buff about him?
So I feel where that's a buff is what I'm sort of proposing there is a larger area of effect than that he currently has, and also that you could set all of them off at once. So you won't necessarily get a kill, but because you can set all 3 off at once, you're probably gonna catch someone. Because you can obviously eliminate any retreat.
That's what I'm afraid of, though. With it's not even about the kill. It's the amount. Like if you can place all 3 at once, the amount of stuff you can clear out in a second.
Yeah.
So
for the push.
Imagine the Goyo shields, dude. It would just
not even that, man. Just imagine being the defending team, and within the span of 2 seconds, everything is gone, and now you're like, what did we do?
So was that a buff then, Zyronic?
Where's all my shields?
Was that a buff then to make him less lethal, but be able to place all 3 at once, but do greater area of effect against utility?
I think that would make him absolutely broken.
What about, imagine this in combination, Pete. Your team, because your team wouldn't die from it either, your team could now push the site while all 3 of them are going off in the site and get in there. It could cover a plant. It could, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
My suggestion would be increase the area of effect, make it less lethal, and maybe make it to where you could throw it, like Zeronic said. You know what I mean? Make it to where you could deploy it. It could be deployed in more situations than it currently can be. Because that's one of the limiting factors right now is
like
you have to have a soft floor or something, or a window or something on the objective, which most situations you're going to be able to have that, but making it a little bit more flexible, I think, would be a nice compromise there.
If you can throw it, you're also going to start seeing people that are maybe repelled or in a doorway throw it to the next wall, and then have the defender be in that room or be able to shoot it from the opposite side. Basically, like you can shoot Kalis from the other side of the reinforced wall now.
Yeah.
So maybe that would start becoming a little bit more of a thing. Maybe Maestro cameras would shoot it as well, right? Or you would start impact tricking cluster charges, whatever, just to make sure that you saved the utility you had on the other side. That it could just be an interesting mechanic, and we'd get him more in play.
Yeah.
And then imagine it with Bikini's idea for a Blackbeard change. I still don't think it should be a Blackbeard change, but I think it's a good idea. The shootable camera thing.
Well, yeah, let's get back to that. What are your ideas for the rework here, Bikini?
Okay, so the first idea was the one that I would like to see above all the other idea I had. So that idea was that I basically wanted to rework Blackbeard, where I felt like I still had the theme of the whole like Blackbeard, but I didn't really catch the same purpose that it feels right now, which was basically a bulletproof camera that you would shoot through a launcher, and it would burrow through the wall or floor, and you would see the other side. So like defenders would need impacts or something to clear it because it would be bulletproof, but it would still like give off a light like a normal camera. You wouldn't know that it's there. So that was the initial idea, and I called it the crow's nest because Blackbeard pirate, crow's nest on a ship. So I felt like thematically in that sense it was cool. And I think I've always wanted like something like a camera operator on attack, because we have drone operators. That's neat and all, but we don't really have, you know, an attacker that's sort of dedicated to getting visuals on around, you know, around the map or so. You know, you could also allow the launcher to put up like a normal camera, so you could shoot it in like in a nice spot or something. And I thought it was also kind of cool because it's a nice contrast to Valkyrie, both of them being about intel. So I kind of like that one. And then the second one I did was because on my first idea, I got a lot of feedback that it's like, it's not catching his purpose at all. Like his purpose at the moment is holding angles, right? That's his purpose. And that the camera thing just didn't catch that at all. So what I basically challenged myself with was that I wanted to take what is arguably one of the most broken concepts in the game and try to make it so to the point where it was still a good gadget, but I wanted to remove that sort of frustration where it's like, you know, the anti-headshot thing. So what I did then was that I basically took Mira, put her on attack, and removed the mirror part so that it was just a bulletproof window, like from the SI event. So what it basically would have been is that you attach it at the bottom of a window, not wherever you want. At the bottom of a window, defenders could still like impact or see for it to shatter the glass. And so basically what you could have someone, you would know that someone would be watching you through that window, but if they were to peek you, they wouldn't have it would be a fair fight because both of you can shoot each other. Whereas at Blackbeard, you know, that's not really the case. So it was still like holding that angle, but not the frustration of him being able to block a headshot. So like you don't really punish someone for having good aim. So I still like that idea. I felt like I made the concept of Blackbeard more fair. And I feel like it actually provides a utility now where like you can sort of use him, you know, for intel, and you can, you know, still holding angles and such. So I was happy with the concept. Yeah.
I think that would remove the frustration of playing as him that you get from time to time, and the bullet that seems to go around the shield. One of the questions I was asked really is, do you think that it'll be useful on most maps? And also, is there like a concern that obviously with a mirror window, it's not just really for mirror, is it? Anyone can use that. So like, if Blackbeard is frustrating at the moment and you kill him, okay, he's done with. But with that window, I've seen your graphic that you put out, which was really neat. But the frustration with that is that any number of operators could be there, right?
That's true, but then again, it was kind of reworked into like a team gadget. And again, if anyone else peeks that window, you can see them. And that's one thing, like Cyronic said earlier, upside down rappelling is just better because you can basically hold angles on people without them even knowing that you are. Whereas with my idea, you would be visible if you're looking through the window. They would.
Could you put it on top of the window as well? Because then you could.
No point.
No, because then it wouldn't. Then you would show. That would be stupid if you did.
If you could put it on a doorway, I'm all in.
I wanted to.
It would
put
have to be like a
as,
deployable device to put it on a doorway.
Yeah,
though,
so
because-
basically, like you do the whole like you put up and then,
Well, then you would
attach
just
it
die.
to the window.
Okay.
Well, no, because of the way mirror works, is that if you're holding it in your hands when you're putting it up, they can shoot through it. So it's the same with that gadget. You start putting it on the barricade. If they try to shoot through the barricade, that would protect your face.
I can see the situation now, Bikini. Smoke grenades go down. The defenders are watching. As the smoke dissipates, there's a mirror window facing them and a couple of attackers looking at him.
Okay, so what would that do on a door? Explain your thought there, Zeronic. Like, what would that do on a door?
You can see if anyone's if there's a drone waiting outside, if there's a claymore. You get to force a vault as well. Well, I guess claymore wouldn't because he's on attack, but like you get to see if there's anything on the other side, and you force a vault. So if anyone has to do anything, well, then they're forced to vault. It's like a deployable shield and attack. It's just to limit runouts, movement, stuff like that. You could let's say you go in, you jump in with Monty, and you plant, and now you hold the after plant with that, like just a indestructible deployable shield for attack that you'd probably never use.
So it would take
for
up like the lower half of the door. That's what you're envisioning?
Lower third. Not
lower
enough
third
that you could...
So you'd be able to crouch behind it safely.
No.
I think
you shouldn't be able to hide behind it. Not in my opinion, but I mean, it's Bikini's idea. This is just what I would like to see added to it.
So
I don't think you should be able to crouch behind it. You should be able to prone, because if you're prone, then you're fucked if anyone actually pushes you. But you have some intel. It'll just be interesting to see.
It would
you could
probably
also
have
place a
to
drone
be...
there that can't be removed.
It would have to be flush
yeah.
against the floor as well, because otherwise you start creating little micro angles underneath it, between that and the floor.
Of course.
There'd be an issue. But I like the fact that it's destructible as his shield is right now, and it's not a mirror window.
Yeah, because that's one thing. I forgot to say that. One thing that I really wanted to do was to make sure that there's a proper counter that exists. Because now, what's the counter to Blackbeard right now? Don't peek, or like take
CSG.
a gamble. Well, no, because he will always block one shot.
Oh yeah.
Regardless, like I wanted to make sure that it had counters, and I don't know if that's one thing, because obviously since I used the mirror to sort of make my mock-up, a lot of people assumed that that's exactly how it works. Which is obviously something that doesn't, go over by Twitter. Some people just looked at the picture and they didn't even read the first text, but I made some other follow-up texts if they would have actually read. That's on them because it's Twitter. But my idea was that it was actually destroyable with explosives. So if you threw an impact, if you threw a C4 at it, it would shatter the glass. That's because I want things to have a counterplay. Because I don't think Blackbeard doesn't have counterplay at the moment.
I mean, it's still fair putting a gadget down that then has to be traded for another gadget. As long as a gadget trades for a gadget, then it's always good, because there's a limit to how much you have.
Yeah,
I like the ideas. I think that with Tachenka being yoinked and reworked, they should steal the two side panels of Tachenka's turret and give them to Blackbeard, and then leave it open in the middle. Like a Browning gun, where you're protected from the sides, but if we're looking straight at each other, you have no excuse for missing the shot anymore. But if you try to attack me from the side, I'm covered.
I think his original shield looked like that's ironic. I think
it was two metal plates.
Yeah.
But I want them see-through, so I want to be able to rappel on a window and do the Blackbeard job, which is to cover a long angle. I want to hang there. I want to have my right side of my face covered and my left side in case someone runs out. But if I take a fight with someone, it's a fair one-on-one fight. The shield would never obscure the actual shot that would come at someone that is looking at me when I'm looking at them.
I don't know. I feel like that would still be kind of bad then at that point. Like, I don't think it would be good at all.
Maybe. It gives me the chance to turn on a headshot. It doesn't give me the chance to tank one.
That's true, but by the time you get the, in a lot of cases at least, by the time you get the chance to, turn, they can either be ready to shoot you in the head or just shoot your body. So I have a hard time seeing how that would be useful. And
he would look like a TIE fighter. I think it would be awesome. I think that's the second start. It would look like a TIE fighter.
I actually think that the reason he got it taken away to start with was because it was too strong. But I don't know. I think he lost the metal shield that he originally had because that was a really bad idea. but I don't know.
Dude, what if they just reversed it? Like, what if his shield didn't cover his head but covered his whole lower body?
I think that would be worse.
So that you had to hit a headshot. Yeah, that probably would be worse. In all honesty,
that's a genius idea, though. I love that.
but here's the added benefit to it as well. If you hit a goo mine, the goo mine goes off and it doesn't do any damage because this shield's in front of you, just sweeping the floor, and you're covering your jackal tracks as well. Oh well, you're on attack, so that doesn't matter.
I want an attacker with actual proper boots, someone that could step in a frost trap and a goo mine without.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That should be a thing.
One of the things that that this always kind of brings up is that it's frustrating. I know that we kind of, I'll say it. I think that Bikini and I are both very vocal on Twitter. I think all of us are for the most part. But one of the things that always frustrates me with this is like it's really fun to speculate and what is this? This is called fan fiction. Basically, that's what we're doing right here. We are fan fictioning. Yeah, we're theorizing. We're doing fan fiction, and so many people on Twitter lose their minds. Yeah, and I don't know if it's because they think that like this is actually going to happen or what, but like it's so much fun to talk about stuff like this, and it takes the fun out of it when people on Twitter just completely act like an ass because you're throwing an idea out there that they don't like. It's fine if they don't like my idea, but don't think that it's not. If I throw an idea out for the game, it's not even me necessarily advocating for that idea. It's just throwing it out to talk about.
Yeah, you might just like want to stir a conversation. Like, what are you guys' thoughts on this? And people will go like, no, you're retarded. Like,
attack the idea, not the person, basically.
Exactly.
But if you go through that guy's like last 20 tweets, you're gonna find there's something going on there. It's not Mr. Nice Feedback person talking.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most vocal. One of the most vocal people on that side of the Siege Twitter. I mean, you can just go through, and it's just immature people. Like it, the way they word their stuff, the way they're just not nuanced when it comes to. I mean, they've gone from talking about Siege stuff to talking about social political issues, and it's just so like that it's just immature people. Mm-hmm. The usage of the N-word, like, and they complain like when we talk about Siege, but they bring Siege into this sort of like political stuff, and it's just bad. No.
It's unfortunate.
I wish we had
it's sad.
A way to play around with some scales and some stuff in custom game. I know, like we've talked about that a million times, but that would give us a way of testing things and kind of seeing if things are fun. Because I think we all, I think pretty much 99% of us suck at figuring out balance. Like we're really bad at saying this is going to be balanced or this is not going to be balanced.
I'm wrong a lot more than I'm right.
Same.
Absolutely.
Like, I am 100% sure that most of the ideas we come up with, we forget one massive like whole, right? Mm-hmm. It's so we'll say, okay, well, this operator will do these things, and then someone asks, well, what about this? And you go, okay, fuck, now everything's broken. Then we fix that problem, and then there's another question and another one.
And that's not even us either. I mean, that's literally everyone. And I think the best proof of that is the reactions that have come from like whenever a new operator comes out. I mean, hell, Amaru and Kali were called broken when they were on the test server by pro players. Like,
so was every new operator since
ever. Yes.
Yeah. So like I don't think, as much as we obviously want to balance for Pro League, they tend to overreact quite a bit when it comes to new stuff.
I don't fault them for that, because looking from their perspective, your job is to play, and things get changed, and it doesn't feel nice when someone tells you that things are changing. So I don't blame them for doing it. I just don't think there should be listened to as much as like the argument that just because people play competitive, therefore they should demand the balance. Yeah. I will never agree with that. I don't think football players should choose the.
You pissed off a lot of people. Like,
sure, I don't think the football players should choose the size of the football field either.
Yeah,
it's rough. But But from a viewer perspective, I like seeing what they can do with what they're given.
Yep.
Some things are not going to be balanced right out the gate. Their input should be taken serious and it should be considered, but it shouldn't be low. That's the only way I look at it.
I mean, we want new stuff to shake things up. Like, that's the purpose of new stuff. If we just introduce something that has no effect, and I know you've been on this flank quite a bit, like, of course we want new characters to feel impactful. If they're not impactful, why would we add new characters?
And why would we buy the skins for them?
Pizza skins.
Sure. I mean, at the end of the day, Ubisoft's a corporation. They want to make money. Yep. They have to make money to keep making the game. And if we add stuff that no one's interested in because it doesn't bring anything new, then they're going to lose money on it. So from a business standpoint, it makes sense to, bring something that shakes things up. Of course, there should always be a limit to that. We don't want an operator that just has absolutely zero counterplay when you play him correctly. Lion. When he came out, but
OG Frost.
Yeah. I mean, this is, but yeah. Yep.
Well, this is actually a hot topic right now because Leroy Athenon.
Yes.
Is that what you're getting ready to say, Pete? Go ahead.
No, go. Because there was no. It's cool.
I mean, he came out. You guys, I'm sure, have seen this. There was an Ubisoft blog. This isn't like an outside article. Oh yeah, he swung like this dude. He swung all right.
I do think it was poorly translated though. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that was in his voice.
It was a little bit out of context. I'm going to paraphrase the quote. Okay, this is what he said. Leroy, and if you're not familiar who Leroy Athanasoff is, he's the top dog as far as the game director right now. For Rainbow Six Siege. So he basically said that they recently did a pro workshop where they bring in pros, they have them sign NDAs, and they show them content that they're thinking about bringing into the game. They showed them stuff from both year 5 and year 6. And he said that they reacted very poorly to it. And to him, that means that they're on the right track. So he went on to explain that pros don't like change in the game. And he went on to justify that statement a little bit more. But basically what he's saying is that, if the pros react poorly to something, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It could actually mean it's a good sign for what they're trying to do.
Yeah. I think it was probably, with the way that, some journalists may work, it's also possible that it was a little bit hyperbolic to generate blog. Clicks.
That was an Ubisoft blog.
Was it?
I think it was an interview with PC Games, N.
Yeah. But it was an interview with PC Games, but they said it was quoted. So that should mean that it's the way it was said. I will say, either way, that is worded in a way that maybe Bikini or I could say it and potentially get away with it, and people would be like,
No. If I would have tweeted that, I would have had every single ranked star on my Twitter calling me names. 100%. I mean, I've been there.
I think it's a fair thing to say. I just think it's a little poorly worded. And I think the context was kind of like something was missing in the, when you read it, it comes across as different than what I think is meant.
Yeah.
So 100%. I'm just clarifying this here.
It is on the Ubisoft blog. It is on the Ubisoft blog flanked. I just found it.
The PC Games article reacting to it.
Yeah, I apologize. You're bang on, mate. Yep. Which is crazy because the reason that's quite pertinent is because it's not like something really lost in translation. This is up on the official site. And I think what surprises people is it comes across a little bit confrontational in a way to express the views to say that it's a good thing that those people weren't happy with it. It's like they've taken it in a
it depends a lot on if you read the whole thing or if you read they reacted poorly to it, which is good. Right? If you then read further, it's like, okay, we're maybe trying to change the meta a little bit and throw some, different things in there. And maybe then, but also, we don't know what it was they reacted poorly to. So maybe they're reacting poorly to something that is truly horrible, or maybe it's something that's going to be amazing, but they don't like. It's really difficult to judge before we have the same info if you're on one side or the other. I'm a big fan of change, and I think that's why Siege do well. I think if Siege was like it was in year 1, there would be no reason to play it anymore. And I liked Siege in year one, but I don't like year one Siege anymore.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty important. And we get to keep the same game, but change things in the game instead of having a version 2 and a version 3 and a version 4 all the time. So we get to keep the same community, the same, skins, maps, and then change little things here and there. Like, I think that's what's good. If like that stuff needs to happen, right?
I mean, I think you've said it as well before, but like, I mean, there will always be a pro scene, right? There will always be someone who's better at playing whatever meta we get to,
But you can't say that to a competitive player, that there's someone waiting to take your place if you don't practice on it.
No. I know, because you said it and you pissed them off. But it's like, at the end of the day, it's just like another form of like promotion. And in the end, like, people who love Siege, they will watch whoever is best at it. It doesn't matter if Pengu is the one, like, or like the best player in the world, because there might come someone who starts beating him on the regular, and he will become the new favorite. And he can blame the meta all he wants, but people will just call him washed up then, And that's kind of like the harsh sort of take on this whole thing with, like, when it comes to like meta, like, there will always be someone who can play that meta really well, and the person who can't will not be happy with it. It's obviously, it's a very harsh sort of balance to try and find, where, like, are you creating something that changes the game, or are you creating something that's extremely oppressive?
Right.
That change happens in everything, right? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I agree with you guys, but I do think that one caveat that I want to add on here is that to defend the pro players a little bit, you want the meta to be something that promotes a competitive environment. But
who decides that?
What's that? Well, yeah, who decides that? Yeah, perfect. Yeah, you can't let the pros necessarily decide that. But if you cross a line to where now the game is RNG, like, for example, take Fortnite for example.
Yeah.
Whenever they brought that, remember they had that sword that came in and just you could swing that thing around and destroy everything. Somebody would have been the best at that, but people were upset about it. It wasn't fun to play. It wasn't fun to play against. It really wasn't fun to watch, and they got rid of it pretty quickly because it wasn't competitively viable, I guess you could say. It didn't create a good competitive balance. But yeah, no, I agree with what you guys are. I agree with you guys for the most part here. I just think that you can cross a line. The devs could cross a line. But the way that I took his tweet or his quote was, if I was him and I was going into this pro workshop and I was saying, my goal is I want to change this. If the pros played it and they got up and they said, it's okay, then I would feel like I failed. But if they got up and they were like, hell no, then I wouldn't necessarily think that I failed. I might think, okay, well, my goal was to change it. I definitely changed it. Is it a good change? Is it a bad change? That might be another question. But, I think that's the way I took his quote. Is
100% agree with you.
The worst thing in the world is if you're trying to change something and there's no reaction to it, that means you failed.
Reading between the lines here, basically the message is there's big changes coming. That's what you should be taking from it. That's what he's trying to tell you. And I think
that with all the core changes.
Yeah, and I think the misunderstanding is that maybe the pros and the devs, that their goals and ambitions always align. Perhaps they do much of the time, but not always.
In the end,
not always.
In the end, it is a business, and they want to make sure that they're making money out of it. And I think one thing that the competitive scene might need to realize is that you're playing their game competitively. They're not making a game for you. They will make what they think will make the game more popular, because in the end, that's really what matters. That's why we have a pro league. It's promotional material. Pro league. They're not making a pro league to be nice. They're making pro league in order to make more money.
That's the hot truth. There is that if it didn't work, it would fail by itself. So if they do things too wrong, it will fail. On the other hand, you could do things as right as you possibly want it from a competitive standpoint, or as a competitive player, that might kill the game.
Yeah.
Maybe that will make less people play it. If less people play it, less people are gonna watch you, and you're gonna make less. So from the player's perspective, they should remember that the more traction the game gets, the more weight they have as well, because the more people will watch and the more people will care. So if the overall game grows, they can charge more money.
Yeah.
So from a business standpoint, it's better from the competitive player that the game gets bigger than the game gets better for them.
Yeah. So then we get to this whole like argument with like, who do we balance for? Do we only balance for the top 0.5%, or do we like take in other areas of the game? I think most people always say like, oh, we should always only balance for pros. If the game is balanced for Pro League, it's balanced for everyone else. That's just not true. It's important to sort of consider everyone and try to make sure that everyone is happy, because if everyone is happy, there are more players. If there's more players, there's more people to view Pro League. If there's more people to view Pro League, they make more money. So it's like,
I just hate the word.
It's not easy.
Here's a quote that I always go back to with this, and I think it came from Intero originally. Give me examples of balance changes that have been made specifically for Pro League that have been bad for the average player. There's only really a couple that I can think of, and they're debatable. I mean, if you wanted to make a blanket statement and say, well, the reason that the operators aren't coming into the game and having an impact now is because of the pro players. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like, okay, you could maybe make the argument that the reason Castle hasn't gotten buffed over time is because he's so good in Pro League. So has that been bad for the average player?
I mean, it's interesting because you have a lot of cases where, you know, you have some operators that pro players, and by all means it's true, where it's been completely game breaking. Whereas you have, you know, in other levels of play, they can't really use them to that sort of the same effect. So they're just not that good there. And oh boy, it's gonna rattle some nerves. But Lion, Blackbeard, like there's just so many cases of these operators that are completely broken in Pro League, but are borderline the worst operator to try and win with in lower ranks. Let me
challenge that real quick, Bikini, because you mentioned Lion, you mentioned Blackbeard.
Yeah.
They nerfed both of those operators. Yeah. Are you telling me that those nerfs were bad for the average player?
No, it made the operators less viable for the average to below average player.
It comes down to like how well people are at using that sort of utility. Lion is very dependent on, you know, the communication and using your intel and your utility, and that you don't really see that in any other levels of play other than Pro League. Like,
I can tell. I agree with you, but the game was really less enjoyable to play whenever Lion had a higher pick rate and was in combination with Dokkaebi. Like, that's not enjoyable. Yeah, maybe the other team isn't capitalizing on it, but it's still not very fun at all to play.
No, but then you're into more like frustration level more than like overpowered level.
Right.
I would say there's two things we're forgetting here. We're so used to having change whenever we damn ask for it. If you go back and play earlier games where things were like StarCraft, there were some things that were pretty damn shit in that when that came out. Mm-hmm. And they kept being bad, and then people found a way around them. And I know that this sounds completely insane to people, that maybe there could be a way around it. Maybe mute jammers being played and then aggressively peaking on mute jammers online, maybe that could be a thing. I don't know. But if it stayed for longer, I think we would have found more stuff to do against it if we knew it wouldn't be changed. I think knowing that we can ask for change and then get it makes the frustration higher, because then people feel like they get it earlier. Mm. And to the question of name changes that have been made for Pro League that were bad for the average player, maybe that's because not as many changes has been made for Pro League as they asked for. Maybe that's the safety net. I think that's the important thing to take away, is that if all the things that has been requested, just some of the things we requested when I was playing, and that's a damn long time ago, if all of those things were put in, the game would not have been what it is today, and the game has been growing since then to now. So if we do all of these things, and also which one do we listen to? Yeah. What if there's like, do we listen to the best team, or do we value the worst Pro League team as much as the best Pro League team? Because if we're just going to say that because it's a competitive player, then like what about the ranked player that got picked up for Pro League and played, for half a year and then got yoinked off a team? Is that the same value as the one who's been playing it for 5 years or whatever, right?
I think a good operator to sort of bring up in this sort of discussion is Goyo. I think all of us know that pro players want Goyo nerfed. But I would say that there's a lot of people outside of Pro League that are saying that Goyo is just not good enough, and you would rather like play Smoke for area denial or something, which isn't even really why you would want to pick Goyo. So there is that sort of like, if they were to nerf Goyo, people would just be like, why the hell are you nerfing Goyo? He's not even that good. Same with Castle. I mean, Castle is a great operator right now, but you see so many people are about, oh, we should buff Castle, because they can't really play Castle. So if they were to, I mean, let's just say, I don't think it's going to happen, but let's just say they would nerf Castle because Pro League is finding him extremely annoying right now in the meta. People would lose their shit because they already think Castle is a useless operator.
People would lose their shit because they've been promised a rework.
Well,
if that happened, they would lose their shit.
Well, now he can rework the map himself.
Well, that's actually a great point that Bikini brought up, and I think that's something that I'll mention. A lot of the pros right now are saying that the game feels like a utility removal simulator. That's one of the more common pro complaints I feel right now. And I think that they're right. When you watch Pro League, it does kind of feel that way. And in some ways, it's like, okay, we have map control. Now we're going to use our Zofia, get rid of this evil eye. Now we're going to use a grenade to get rid of this Goyo shield. Now we're going to, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, now we're going to burn the ADSs with our flashes, and then we're going to execute. You know what I mean? And I do think that is a bit out of control right now in Pro League. The problem is, I don't feel the game plays like that at all in ranked.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't.
And it doesn't. The pros are like, and people look at me strange whenever I say this, but Pro League is more predictable than ranked. And I don't mean that in the sense like that they're not as good or anything like that. It's just like it's more predictable, and like they're going to defend this site, and then our attack is going to be structured this way, and these are the defenders we're going to have, these are the attackers we're going to. In ranked, it's like one person with crazy gun skill on a flank that would never work in Pro League can win a round by themselves. So everything like breaks down at that level. So the Goyo thing, a lot of the pros think that he should only have 2 shields. Here's the thing, man. In ranked, Goyo is already weak. If you make him only have 2 shields, like I don't think that. I know like Uzeronic, you've played a lot of Goyo and you found like good use to him. I'm not saying that he is useless in ranked. I'm just saying that like he's not being played much in ranked. I think the majority of the player base finds him to be pretty useless. You take 2 shields away from him, and he's what's that?
He's the 3rd worst performing defender in Platinum and above on PC.
Maybe the way to approach that is secondary gadgets on the attack. I mean,
well, that could be. What are you thinking there, Pete?
Well, there's a few different ways you could do it. For example, we know we're getting the hard breach type thing. So it's not out of the question at some point that you might get something that encroaches a little bit onto Kali and Thatcher that is not as good, but it encroaches a little bit. Or a reworked like Ash, where actually Ash's launcher or something like that could be, for a few people, a secondary gadget in the future, but Ash gets some other kind of ability.
Honestly,
nerf the fuck out of Jaeger and the problem's over.
I was going to say that. Like, literally, especially now with Wama in the game and the fact that you can run both of them, like, yeah, it's time.
It's nerf his utility.
It's time to nerf Jaeger's gadget.
Make Jaeger only take flashbang and smoke grenades, so the stuff that you normally dump on him is what he takes, but he shouldn't take an Ash charge or an ADS and then make Wamai ignore smokes and flashes. Wamai takes boomy things because they don't get destroyed, they get pulled away. Then we start having some fun with how that could be used. And then Jaeger removes things that make you not able to see. So flashbangs and smokes.
Would it make more sense to reverse that? Because, and here's my line of thinking. A Wamai will, like, if it catches a grenade, everything still explodes. So you can't really stack 2 magpies on one window.
It's really fun to use Wamai to like turn
mechanic.
a flash.
You would like that aspect of it. Okay.
I would want to be able to play in server with well, I mean, banks out, but let's some arbitrary site. I would want to be able to play there and not be rained with flashes, and be able to fight, and then use that. For example, after a mirror window, I can place it somewhere where it's harder for them to smoke or it's harder for them to flash me, but I still have to respect the fact that maybe they could nade me. The sound of the nade, the fact that it has to be cooked, gives you some sort of counterplay in moving, right? You can hear it even if it's below. If you have one or two floor holes, you can hear that pin being pulled, and you can kind of figure out, are they gonna nade the default spot or are they just gonna nade random and hope they get something? And if you make it so the ADS takes the grenades, then the utility is gone when it comes to Sophia charges, for example. But if you make it with Wamai, then defenders can start playing around with it where it's hidden underneath a table or it's up on the roof. Maybe, they throw a grenade in and it goes back and forces the attackers to run a certain direction instead of running back to it. So there could be some interesting and smart plays with it. Right now, Wamai seems so immensely useless because you put that thing up and if it captures a flashbang, you got nothing, right? And the area where it catches things is so huge, even if it might catch a smoke, and that might actually hurt you unless you really thought about where you put that thing, because it might elevate the smoke so you can see under it. So you get kind of a one-way smoke like with Capital, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas if you do it with grenades and you know that it only takes explosive things, then you have a full understanding of what could happen there. Now you don't. What if it's a flash? It can be so many things. It can be Capital smokes, fire arrows, Candelas, gridlocks.
What if
it can
there
be
was
goddamn everything?
Okay, so small idea. What if there was a way to toggle a selective mode on the Wamai? So when you're holding it in your hand, and let's say you press the toggle fire button, which is B on default, what if you could, let's say, change the color, so like, yellow, and it will only catch smokes. Red, it will only catch frags. And blue, it will only catch flashbangs. And then like maybe a fourth one, like where it can catch anything if you want that.
Do that for Jaeger.
So one idea I've thought of that I think that it goes down the same road, but accomplishes a little differently. And again, it's not realistic at all. But my idea is that when Wamai catches something on a Magpie, he automatically, as soon as it gets destroyed, he gets another one in his inventory. And I guess the idea there is that if you have one on a window and somebody throws in a flash grenade, then you will, as soon as it detonates, you'll have another one to throw up there to catch another flash grenade or whatever. You know what I mean? It's just because up until the first minute has gone in around, I mean, Wamai only has 3 total available to him. That means that Jaeger has twice as many at that point available as far as denial.
But imagine if they were guaranteed to only take lethal, then 3 is an insane amount.
You couldn't burn them with an ADS.
Yeah.
And then Jaeger,
or you couldn't burn him with a flash.
Jaeger is still great because with the amount of people that play Jaeger without placing his ADSs, he's a good operator, right? He's fun to play. He has a good gun. Even in competitive, if you can only burn flashes and smokes, that even has its own strength. Because now you know, so when you see the pick and ban phase and you have a Jaeger there, you're okay, right? We might be able to nade in here. But we can't flash or pop flash the doorways. We can't just smoke sight and push because it would change the way Jaeger's played. Now you're going to use your ADSs to make sure that things don't get smoked or you don't get flashed, not just so you don't die. And then Wamai would be used to guarantee that you could play certain areas without getting naded. I like the idea of them having 2 different uses instead of the same use but shittier on one of them.
Yeah.
Because it's like... Yeah. Sorry?
I was going to say, there is an advantage to Wamai as well in that, like with what Bikini said about being able to select what you're going to catch, there can be a little bit more pre-thought in that. I suppose the one worry is that, would you perhaps limit operator diversity on defense if you needed to have a Jaeger and a Wamai to stop all projectiles, or maybe the compromise to that is that Wamai has that selector, whereas he can do a little bit. He could choose to do everything, or just do lethals, or just do stuns and smokes. That might be the solution to that, because otherwise you're going to have 2 of your 5 operators always anti-projectile, just to cover all your bases.
Why do we have an assumption that you need that? Like, from an attacking point of view, let's say you're playing Cafe and you have, 2 or 3 shields placed up and around piano. They need to be removed. You can't ignore them. So the utility would be used to remove that utility, and we get that whole trade, and then eventually we end up with 2 people fighting each other. The ADS is only there, so it takes more utility to remove that shield, but if the utility does end up trading for the shield, well, then we do end up having a fight where you didn't need the ADS there for that fight to happen. And if you're afraid of getting naded, there's Rook. Maybe we see more of him then. You'll only get downed, or you can overstim with Doc. There's so many different things that could happen, but if the fear right now is that we have too much of a utility meta, then hurting Jaeger is going to be the way to make it easier for attackers to get in. That's literally it.
You're right. I would just say, though, honestly, from my perspective, I'm only speaking from me, if Jaeger's ADS is only caught flashes and smokes, I probably wouldn't bring him.
Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe that's the goal. Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the goal. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but I can picture very few scenarios where I'm like, hey, we need a Jaeger to stop that flash grenade from coming in this window. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's never going to happen.
Every anchor ever. Like, play Blue Stairs. What are you going to do if you get flashed?
Yeah, Blue Stairs would be a scenario. Yep. There's one I can think of. Yep.
Every place you'll ever play a shotgun. There you go. That range you'll lose if you get flashed.
Well, I mean, I would still make the argument that a grenade is scarier on Blue Stairs than a flash, but
no, because you can hear that, and it's not as quick. I can hear the pin being pulled. I know that it's going to come, so I can back off. I can't do the same with a flash. Flash is instant. It blows up a second after it hits the wall.
There's a timer. It depends on how it's thrown, but I mean,
it's 1 second.
It's going to hit
something.
If we're arguing that good people are the ones throwing it, then it can be thrown from a place where it doesn't matter where I am. I will get blind. Because a flash, it doesn't matter if you turn from it. If the flash lands within 3 meters of you, you get full blind no matter what, whether you're looking at it or not.
I mean, the counter to that, though, would be a teammate can push with an uncooked grenade, and you as a defender have no idea. You know what I mean? And we've seen that on Blue Stairs. I mean, if you go back to the DZ tapes on Invitational, you saw them throwing a grenade and a clip's coming right behind them. And the defender doesn't know. He gets the grenade indicator. He doesn't know if it's cooked or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
So I think there's strengths to both, obviously. It's interesting. I mean, like I said, I think there's potential there. One thing that I suggested in countering this, utility removal simulator is what if defenders? What if you could ban one more defender per team right now than you can currently? So basically, the ban phase would look like this.
Though.
Yeah, right. And you can come back with that. I'm just saying the way that I presented it, and there's lots of counter arguments. The way I presented it was that in the ban phase, each team would ban 2 defenders and 1 attacker. The idea being that, you don't have to make Goyo useless for ranked because of what he's doing in Pro League. Give the Pro League the option to ban out some of that utility so that these operators can still be viable for all the player base, but they can ban out these operators in Pro League and get rid of some of that utility.
I would argue to just make it a wildcard ban for the 3rd ban. And then in the future, I mean, we can just have 2 attacker bans, 2 defender bans.
That's coming anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a question about time until it
just
happens.
give people 2 bans and not limit them to teams. If there's any team out there that want to ban 2 attackers, then go do that. Good luck. Yeah. Well, like, if they can make that work, hell, that might be super interesting to watch.
Yeah. Dude, is there a fear though? Like, okay, so let's say that the meta is that with your 2 bans, you need this number of defenders banned in order to get into that happy space that pros are going to be happy in. So is there a fear that is going to make who starts on defense or attack more of a deciding factor on who wins that game?
Maybe, but it's not a problem yet, because from all stats we have, the starting side has no impact on who wins. So if it has no impact yet, then I don't think it's bad to give it an impact.
I guess maybe to clarify that point a little bit more. So let's say that I'm starting on defense. I want all that utility on the board. Okay. And I'm not one of those people who signs up with if we're starting on defense, let's not ban any good defenders. Like I'm not on, I'm playing devil's advocate more than anything here. But if I'm starting on defense, I want all that utility on the board. So I'm going to use both of my bans to ban attackers. And I'm going to hope that I go up 6-0 on defense. And now whoever's starting out on attack is in a position where they're like, well, shit, we need this utility off the board. They banned only attackers. So now we have to ban only defenders. You know what I mean? Like
maybe, but I guess that'll come up to the teams and how they think. It could be super interesting seeing someone, knowing they start an attack and then end up banning both Thermite and Hibana. And then they do that because they figured out a way to run literally no heart breaches and just dumpster in with Monty or something. I'd rather see them have the freedom, and then if it becomes a problem, well, then it's a counter on your end. You have 2 bans, and so does the other team. So if they ban 2 defenders and you have an issue with that, well, then you have to ban 2 attackers.
I don't think they could do that. It would have to be a best of 3, and where both teams get the chance to start on defense and attack. Like in a best of 1, you know what I mean? Like I really fear for the competitive integrity of a match.
There are plenty of maps where it's normal to, like, if you don't win 4-2 on one side, you basically lost the map already.
Yeah, but you can't weight the defensive side out of your bans. You know what I mean? Like you could in that scenario. You know what I mean? Like if I've got 2 bans that I can use on both defenders, I start on attack, then I would want a best of 3 so that no matter what, I'm going to get a chance to start on defense, and they're going to get a chance to start on defense.
I don't buy into the idea that you're going to be able to just instantly outsmart the other team just because you have 2 bans. Wherever those 2 bans are placed, there's going to be 2 bans the other team can make that will maybe nullify it or maybe make it even worse for you.
That problem can be ironed out anyway.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see what would happen, at least. It's super hard to speculate about because I don't think the bans are going to be what we thought they were going to be. It would be something like a team instantly bans IQ just to force the other team to ban Valga and Echo. Done. And then we end up with pretty much the same stuff as we already have because they don't want to be the ones playing against it, right? Or certain teams that have default bans will just ban Capitao and Mira. But what if a team does something crazy and wants to ban double Heart Breach? Now they get the chance to force the other team into doing something new. We force new metas. We will probably see many, many more different sites and strats and takes and more diversity and operators. I think it would be 1,000,000 times more interesting to watch.
That was my first thought as well. Wrong. But then when you think about it more, does it... Because I was thinking that, you're going to see a lot more different tactics and stuff, and it's going to be more interesting viewer experience, which is what I care about, really, let's be frank. But,
sure.
but could the opposite not be possible? Where actually you get a team just ban out, have one idea, and because they can now do that, they can just make sure that can happen.
I think it will break after a month, though. So people will figure out that if you have these bans, people will find some complementary ban that really messes with that, right?
Dude.
So let's say you take like Hibana and Mav away every time you play a certain map. You know what? Fuck you. We take Capitao, Thermite away and Monty. So now good luck.
Gotcha, yeah. Could be
I'll tell you something that I bet we all agree on, that this conversation has really reinforced my idea on, and that is there should be more new maps coming into the Pro League rotation. Part of this utility removal simulator that they're talking about right now is that they've been playing the same maps for like what, a year and a half, and everything is like
I think it's added of more utility.
It is. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. There has been more utility added. Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, when you throw in a new theme park plus a new canal, now all of a sudden the meta's not so flushed out on those maps, and things are developing and new ideas are coming, and it's not going to be the same thing every single time where, you have a Goyo shield here. You've got, and I think that's really the way that I really analyze this whole Mute Mozzie meta is that the Goyo in Pro League has allowed them to run Mute Mozzie combos. If you look last night, a lot of those matches, they were running Mute Mozzie, and they have maybe a Maestro, Castle, and a Goyo, there's a lot of different items that they've got to get rid of, and that Mute Mozzie now doesn't hurt them as much. Whereas before, they couldn't really justify the Mute Mozzie because they were wanting to use some utility soap with some other different operators or whatever. I just think that, one operator with what is it, 3 shields? How many shields does Goyo have?
Three.
Yeah, it's a lot, but I don't know. Anyway, I just think that introducing new maps on a more regular basis in Pro League needs to happen.
I think the issue is that pro players do not want that.
Exactly.
Of course
They're
they do.
very against
They
that.
definitely don't.
But then we get to the sort of thing that Leroy was in. Is
Good.
it better to go against what the pro players want here because it makes for more interesting games?
It's also better for the community because then someone gets to teach us how to play those maps proper.
Honestly,
Yeah,
that's the bit I like.
think that's the reason why
most
Theme
about
Park
it.
Everything.
it's perfect that Theme Park is in Pro League right now because so many players still have this sort of like PTSD that Theme Park is a terrible map. I would say that the aesthetics of Theme Park at the moment is very dull and annoying colors.
It's not a pretty map.
Yeah, but the layout is really good on the new theme park. I found it really enjoyable. Hell, I've even started enjoying Fortress now in casual because I've actually like started opening more stuff instead of reinforcing every single wall I see, which is an issue that I still see in like Platinum ranked. People just go reinforce everything, but like I would probably rather have a rotation there so I can retake site. And I think more people need to start opening up how they strat on a map, even in ranked. Like, stop reinforcing the same old wall that you've been reinforcing your entire, like, think about it, like, set up something different. Now with the new deployable shields, there are so many new setups that you can do. Try operators that maybe the operator didn't work, a few seasons ago, Fuze, but now if you try him now, he might be a lot better because of what the defenders are more generally going to bring. More people need to go out of their comfort zone when it comes to like what operators they play and how they set up the site, what site they play. I mean, look at Coastline. Kitchen used to be one of the worst sites, in a lot of people's opinions. It's probably the one that people tend to go. Maybe Hookah is still played more, but Kitchen is second best site on Coastline.
Second
now.
in ranked, I would say.
Yeah, that was not the case.
Penthouse used to be the best in Pro League. And then that all swapped around, right? And Blue Bar was the one you definitely didn't go to, and that's second site for a lot of teams.
Yeah, but rank is very slower at changing.
I mean, your point, when we played Oregon together, you and I, for not too long ago.
Yeah.
Oregon Basement is a really good example of people they're just doing habit. Like, they're just walking around, that's a wall, this is site, that should probably be reinforced.
Yeah, like, pre-reinforce. I reinforced this, I should reinforce it now as well. People need to stop that.
4 walls are spent to reinforce a hallway that leads to one door. 4 walls. There's no way you can justify that.
Yeah,
and at least leave a rotate or something or whatever. But like maybe I don't know. You know how you can't ban the operators on TTS? Maybe you shouldn't be able to reinforce a certain amount of walls to start with on TTS, just so we get to actually try some rotations.
Honestly,
it's on the players. That one.
Yeah, it's
into Pro League.
Yeah, force them in the Pro League. And if you looked at the Twitch chat yesterday, everybody wanted them to play Theme Park. Like, people were I got played one time in EU, and people were pumped to see that match.
It was awesome to see.
Yeah,
it was so fun.
Although Mossy and Mute, this might not click with everyone, but I honestly think Mossy Mute meta is the most boring meta to watch we've ever had in Siege.
Yeah,
the fact that almost nothing is getting droned, it's super messy. There are so many times where people walk and get shot from the side because there's a lot of holes, a lot of long angles, and things are just kind of...
Everything happens in the last 30 seconds of the round because they're spending way too much time clearing the map.
I miss seeing a defender getting droned out and then people just, maneuvering around and collapsing on them. Like, the viewing experience of no drones or very, very few drones becomes very hard to follow.
Yeah. And for the spectator as well, you don't know where the action is going to happen.
Yeah.
I wanted to, speaking of the whole, like, at least going back to this sort of like forcing maps to rotate a little bit more often in Pro League, can we talk about the grace period?
For operators?
Yeah.
Sure.
Obviously we don't want, a lion to come into the game again. However, I feel like the sort of hype that brings a new season and seeing how pro players use the new operators is kind of dead compared to what it used to be. I mean, before the grace period came out and, a new operator came out, you saw them use in Pro League. And it was really cool to see like how fast they had like sort of worked out how to play the new content. I thought that was really enjoyable. And it's not really there, I feel, even though they don't even use the new operators until the grace period is over. Like, they don't scrim with Yana and Oryx right now. They're going to scrim with them before they come out. So the grace period just feels kind of pointless because the only place the pro players actually use these operators are in ranked, and ranked and competitive are two different games. Just because you can clap someone in ranked by playing Yana and Oryx does not mean that they will be that strong in the pro league play. So I just feel like the grace period just kind of comes off as pointless.
What was the motivation behind it, Lion?
It was because pros wanted time to get used to new operators.
But they don't use it.
Right.
They don't use it.
Exactly. So the excuse is that we want time so we can get used to the new operators and implement them because it's too much to ask to just have them in right away. Yeah. And I understand that that's a fair thing to ask if you then actually do practice with them and use them in the grace period.
They don't touch them in scrims for that grace period that it's supposed to do. So it's just pointless.
And you could always, I know this is crazy, but you could make the argument that maybe ranked is actually paving the early meta for the new operators instead of Pro League. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that the pros, once they start getting their hands on them, they look at different ways of using them. Absolutely. But who's going to define how to use the new operators when they're released? The ranked players. You know what I mean? That's what everybody's going to see. And wouldn't you rather have the pros defining how these operators could be used? That's one argument I would say. Here's what I'll say. I would say one of two things. Either the developers need to get rid of the grace period, or number two, they need to take more risk because the grace period's there. Right now, what we have is operators coming into the game in a pretty tame state.
They're conforming to the meta, not really changing it that much.
Well, yeah, I mean, the pros play these operators in the pro workshops. They give their feedback. The operators come into the game in a state that the pros are happy with, and then they have the 30-day grace period, and then they don't get played by the pros once the 30-day grace period is over. Cali wasn't played a single time yesterday, to my knowledge. Walmart was played a couple times.
Walmart saw a decent amount.
Walmart was played a little bit
in APAC quite a bit. They played
Cali was there. Okay.
Walmart was played a fair bit in the EU as well. The problem is so they're either tame or they're OP. I've never heard anyone say that something got released that was perfectly fine and balanced. I can't think of it at least which operator that would be. But with Cali, I remember watching the launch video at the event with a handful of pros, and a certain pro looked over and said, "This is literally the stupidest, most broken shit I have ever seen. She will break Pro League."
And they're not playing her.
And that exact team hasn't touched her.
See, and come on. This is why the grace period sucks. Because if this was the case, that voice crack. If this was the case, we would have seen them. They would have played this, and we would have seen this sort of trying to this is in my mind how we're going to play her, where she's completely broken, and truly get to see how that would play out instead of this whole screaming with them and they're like, oh, they're not bad, we're not going to play it.
In a way, what I find quite interesting about removing the grace period is basically the best teams the cream will rise to the top. So those that are able to quickly adapt will shine through. And also, is it true to say that, for the most part, when these operators are revealed, it isn't a surprise for the pro players? Because I'm sure not all of them get to go to the workshops, but I'm sure it is communicated between them, or there's some groups where they discuss these operators. And
no, Pete, I'm sure every single one of these pros takes their NDA very seriously. Come on. What do you?
Well, I would have thought that the case would have been that they would all know what they were, but then with Zyronic's anecdote a moment ago about someone turning to him and saying that is the craziest. Makes you think.
I would say that supports your argument because he's not thinking for himself. That pro was listening to all of his buddies who played it early and got some type of sick 4K playing against the devs in Montreal. You know what I mean?
This guy actually played.
Okay,
and he knew what was up. He just only voiced his opinion when after this part, right?
So,
I mean, I said the same. I had a discussion when the Shifting Tides TS was up. I remember, I'm not going to name him, but there was a pro player that was very vocal about Kali on Twitter. Thought it was the most broken operator he had in a long time. Same there. And I told him, just because you're clapping random people on the test server with Kali does not mean that in Pro League you will be able to do that.
You know, I wonder if we can look at the timeline. When did they bring this change in? About 2 years ago? When did this come in? 18 months, 2 years?
It was sometime after Outbreak. I think it was
Oh, yeah. It was after Parabellum, I want to say. It was the season after Parabellum.
But what I'm trying to get at is
we had grace periods before that as well. They just weren't the norm. I'm pretty sure when Capital came out, he was locked out for a little bit as well.
Was he?
Oh, no. Because Lion came in and had no grace period.
No. But wasn't Capital kept out for a little bit because of how bonkers he was with nades and his fire insta-killing people?
No, I don't think
I don't think we were allowed to play him on day one when he came out. Maybe we were.
Maybe that wasn't just made public. Maybe that was something internal that wasn't communicated.
Yeah, maybe.
But, it's funny because, this grace period comes in and it ties in exactly with the decline of G2. Hey, let's bring it back.
Funny.
No, I mean, I think you might be onto something there, Pete. In all honesty,
I don't get the what you said with the cream always rises to the top. That's gotta hold true, and we have to always look at it that way. If you change a rule in any other sport, it's not like magically the 10 best people all of a sudden just aren't good anymore, right? Like in MMA when they removed headbutts. It wasn't like the
we all knew that day.
Good fighters, right? We all missed that day. This.
Yeah, adaptation is part of the skill set.
As much as people think.
Yeah, adaptation is part of the skill set, right? It's not just being really good at one thing. It's being able to change and understand how to fully utilize and what the impact is on your overall strategy and
that thing they have to adapt to. They might be able to abuse that against the other teams, right? It's not only the team that has to, now we have to learn something new. Yes, but so does all the other teams.
And watching that process of other teams catching up is actually quite interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Remove the grace period. Hashtag.
Oh, man.
Is that the new hashtag?
Yeah. Hashtag remove grace period.
Do you guys have any strong opinions on the Mozzie pizza uniform? That's just out today, right? That's the Twitch pack is Mozzie.
It's so unrealistic.
Is that the one everyone's laughing in favor of?
Tom Clancy is rolling over in his grave right now.
Listen. Tom Clancy was a capitalist. He loved money. This skin sells. He would be mad that it wasn't out before. They should have dropped with Mozzie coming into the game.
Dude, I'm more concerned about what they did to Mozzie in that cinematic. Bloody hell. It looks like he lives in the basement in his mum's house. Just, do you know what I mean?
Eating pizza.
Basically.
You know?
I don't know if you saw Mozzie in that. I was like, bloody hell, I was really underwhelmed by that. It does have a Fortnite thing about it that I feel, the art style, I suppose, but I don't know. I don't feel too strongly about it. Has the reaction been broadly negative then?
I don't know. To be honest with you, and that's the thing. You
It's
don't really
not my
know
cup
because
of
it's
tea.
all leaked. It was all leaked months ago,
Yeah.
and I think people reacted to it then.
Yeah.
And I forget what that reaction was, so
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think more people have bought it than have complained about it.
Yeah.
Well,
Wait,
it's
can you buy
Twitch
it?
Prime. It's Twitch Prime, right?
Yeah, it's Twitch.
Yeah, so I think
Twitch
more
packs,
people have accepted it, or what do you want to call it, than have complained about it. I mean, I'm so indifferent. It's a goddamn
Yeah,
skin.
I don't care either.
It has
really don't.
nothing to do with the gameplay at all.
But let me
Okay,
challenge that
Ember
idea.
Rise.
Let me challenge that idea because I actually do agree with you, right? But the challenge to that idea is it doesn't affect gameplay, but we could get. I wouldn't be in favour personally of having a game where the art style just became super kooky and everyone was like a cartoon Lego man running around. Like, it is kind of important to me that there is a little bit of realism. So I would be a little bit, impacted if
why this skin?
Yeah,
what about
yeah.
the Halloween skins? What about the clown skins? The
one,
unicorn skin for
yeah.
Chachenka? Why did no one lose their shit over that?
Well, some of them did. This is
there's more now.
In
So
year
they're
one.
mingling.
Yeah, that's
people
true.
were upset, but no, the art style does matter. It's very important to a game. Like if everything looked like that, it would take something away from it for me. But that being said, I don't really.
As long as we can choose our own skins, I do think with all the skins coming and the silhouettes becoming harder and harder to see, it's a really good way to just softly do the sellout and flow over there and say, just give us the operator name when we kill people. remove the other names and only show them on the scoreboard after the scene instead. Pretty, thank you, please. And then just give us operator names when we shoot stuff.
So are you going to be running that skin?
Probably not. I'm going to have it in the inventory because I want every single skin in the game that I can possibly get. But no, I tend to have all of my skins on my main account trying to look
Emberize. Zeronic runs nothing but Emberize.
I actually don't have Emberize for anything but Cav.
He runs all the Blood Orchid uniforms as well. If you run that skin, the 200 IQ plays, you don't actually have to look at it. Everyone else does. You get me? So it doesn't really impact you.
I'm going to sit still somewhere and just move my head a little bit so the googly eyes are moving.
I don't know. I kind of want them to have fun with it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want them to go. You're right. There's a line that I don't want them to cross, but I don't mind one or two like fun, silly uniforms per year, something like that.
Yeah. I think that's a balanced way of looking at it. Yeah. If they were all like that, that would cheese you off, right? Quite literally.
Yeah.
Pepperoni and cheese.
Yeah. I don't want to play Fortnite. All right. Well, you guys ready to wrap this up?
Yeah, before we wrap it up, I just wanted to say, obviously, it was a bit sort of serious at the start, and obviously, if anyone's impacted by the coronavirus, obviously, our thoughts are with you, and it's just at this moment in time, it's just about taking care of your family and taking care of yourself and limiting exposure.
Yeah.
Wash the hands.
Agree. Wash the hands.
Wash the hands and peace and love.
Play video games.
Play video games. It's safe.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up here. Again, sorry we missed you guys last week, but getting back on track here. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at LogicBombCast. That's our Twitter handle. You can also, check us out on the audio-only formats. Pretty much anywhere you can watch or listen to podcasts, you'll find us. Just search for the Logic Bomb Podcast. And thanks again, Bikini, for coming on. We'll make sure that we have Bikini socials listed down below, whether it's his YouTube channel, Twitter, Twitch, all that stuff.
He's a small YouTuber. You might not have heard of him, but do check him out.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks again, Bikini. Really appreciate it. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and sign off.
Bye.